news. Days after an attempt had been made on Donald Trump's life, a former top cop has written a piece, an article, and this is about the perils of polarizing rhetoric in society. Today, the BJP has used that very article to take potshots at the kind of language that Rahul Gandhi uses. Now, the question that this raises is, can leaders, whether it's the Congress or the BJP, can they agree to disagree and do so without resorting to any kind of foul language, any kind of violent language? Is that even possible? Just listen in first before we get into the discussion. This is what the BJP spokesperson Sudhanshu Trivedi had to say about it.
एक दुखद परंतु चिंताजनक बात यह है कि प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के विरुद्ध इस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग, और मैं साफ शब्दों में कहूंगा, हिंसा के लिए उकसाने वाली भाषा निरंतर प्रयोग की जा रही है। अभी आपको ध्यान हो, कांग्रेस के नेता प्रतिपक्ष राहुल गांधी जी ने चुनाव प्रचार के दौरान पिछले वर्ष कई बार अपमानजनक शैली में मोदी जी के लिए मारना, डंडे मारना इत्यादि शब्दों का प्रयोग किया। और इतना ही नहीं है, हम बहुत साफ शब्दों में कहना चाहेंगे कि मौत और हिंसा जैसे शब्दों का प्रयोग बयानों में नहीं होना चाहिए। किसी नेता के लिए मौत के शब्द का प्रयोग सबसे पहले 2007 में सोनिया गांधी जी ने मौत के सौदागर शब्द के रूप में किया था। हमने कभी, जब आपातकाल में संविधान की हत्या हो गई थी, तब भी कभी श्रीमती इंदिरा गांधी जी की मौत की कामना या मौत जैसे शब्द का प्रयोग नहीं किया था।
Well, there is a bit of agenda setting that is already taking place, but it's on a very important issue. When we talk about dialing down rhetoric, which does polarize, that does create a sense of violence, is it time now for societies across the world, including in India, to really take note of it, understand the impact it has on society? Let's discuss this. Lokesh Jindal is a political analyst. He joins us with author and political analyst Karan Verma. Great to have you, gentlemen. Thank you for making the time for joining us. Mr. Jindal, do you think it is time now to dial down the hate, the violence in political discourse?
Well, good evening, everybody. Yes, we do have a provision under law in the Constitution, Article 19, Clause 2. It lays down reasonable restrictions while exercising freedom of speech and expression. However, the Supreme Court has time and again stated that the reasonableness of these restrictions must be proved by the state. So it's not that there are the freedom of speech and expression is absolutely or is used without any form of restriction. So there are various provisions, Section 153A, which restricts while you are addressing the public and if there is a hate speech used. But the larger question is the issues on which the present political discourse is taking shape is something that is disturbing. The BJP, when it resorts to communal hatred, when it tries to come out with rhetorics which pits one community against another, that is far more dangerous than use of certain words which might incite violence. Because what BJP is resorting to is a complete civil, I would say, unrest when a particular religious community is targeted. And if at all the opposition replies back in that very same tenor, at that point of time, the ruling government cannot complain.
This is exactly the question I want to ask. Without finger pointing, without saying that, what about this, can we actually decide across the political spectrum not to use violence, threats, any kind of bullying in our political dialogue? Is that even possible? And if the answer is yes, why don't we agree to stop? Why don't we agree to disagree? What's your take on this, Mr. Verma?
Okay, so, you've added this rider without finger pointing, but unfortunately, we'll have to fix accountability because then only we'll be able to obliterate violence or bullying, or, as you say. Right now, as we speak this, West Bengal has become the epitome of political violence, something that is absolutely abominable. I mean, 45 dead in the panchayat elections. Can you imagine that? And people from across parties, I mean, we have congressmen who were killed, we've had BJP people who were killed, and 20,000 seats go uncontested. We saw a Taliban-style video coming out from it, and it was the Calcutta High Court that rapped on the knuckles of the government. Till this is not condemned in a bipartisan fashion across by all parties, including by my friend Lokesh, who's here right now, he should also stick his neck out and say this is just not acceptable. Unfortunately, what we see is these elements enter into alliances, convenient alliances for political gains. That is when we normalize and mainstream political violence. And unfortunately, that is happening, and this needs to be, it's high time we woke up and smelled the coffee. We've seen people in leadership positions, Congress Maharashtra President Nana Patole say, I can even beat Mr. Modi. This is the kind of rhetoric, this is the kind of language he's resorted to, and he's been made president. So, we need to walk the talk until and unless we don't fix accountability. And it has to come from the electorate also. Because the electorate has to send out this message that anyone who resorts to this kind of violence or this kind of crazy rhetoric, we are not going to vote for him. Till these politicians are not hurt, because what hurts them are their political and electoral prospects. If they realize that this is going to give us bad results at the ballot, they are going to, unfortunately, that's the only way you can make them dial it down, because ethics, morality, that's not going to deter them from ratcheting up this rhetoric if it can get them a few votes. I'm talking from a pragmatic standpoint. Yes, I agree with you, absolutely, in spirit, that we need to dial it down. But unfortunately, it cannot be a one-way traffic. It has to be a two-way street, and it has to come from the voters.
Looking at a tweet where the BJP had to take a dig at Rahul Gandhi and call him a third-time fail. I'm talking about building consensus over here. And this kind of whataboutery, this kind of finger-pointing, one wonders how it is going to get a place where you are not going to be able to do any of that, to be able to reach a spot where this kind of thing, without the electorate having to come out and vote, because how do you choose when all political parties are doing the same thing? And I want to ask you, Mr. Jindal, this kind of hate-filled, this kind of polarizing rhetoric, actually, is it part of the decision-making of a political party today? What are the briefs that party spokespersons get when they participate in public debates? Is this a decision that political parties make to say these things about each other?
Well, you can look at the manner in which spokespersons from BJP resorts to inflammatory language and hateful rhetorics and make the entire atmosphere toxic. That is something which must be condemned from both the sides. But I would like to make one very important point over here. We have been focusing too much upon freedom of speech and expression, and we have completely neglected the fundamental duties that we have. If I talk about the Constitution, it talks about a fundamental duty to promote harmony and a spirit of brotherhood amongst all communities. Now, over here, if the focus shifts from rights to duties, it is for the government to ensure that certain forms of legislative mechanisms must be introduced, that any political party, leader, or any person resorting to creating disharmony between various communities, creating some form of enmity amongst communities, that must be brought before law. Now, we have seen the entire year of 2022, 2023, there were hateful rhetorics. Even during elections, going against the model code of conduct, there are hateful speeches that are given to achieve electoral ends. So till the time there isn't any form of a level playing field, a standard mechanism, a law that brings about a political maturity, a meaningful political discourse, any form of legislation is going to be draconian, and it will be thwarting democracy, and it will be moving towards authoritarianism.
Do you agree? Freedom of speech is something that we value more than our responsibilities.
No, I don't think it's just a freedom of speech issue. I think it's largely to do with peace. When we talk about peace and harmony, it comes through a sense of justice and action. When those lumpen elements or those rabble-rousers or those who are resorting to political violence, when they are let scot-free and when they have no consequences to pay for it, then this becomes contagious. Right now, as we talk, in Tamil Nadu, we are seeing political murders. The BSP president was murdered. I mean, not just rhetoric, we are seeing murders. So we've gone that low, unfortunately. Till all parties come together, we can talk, good stuff, sugar-coated stuff in studios, but the fact is we need action. Where at the first inkling of any sort of political violence, be it verbal or be it in terms of action, it needs to be acted upon, and all parties in a bipartisan manner should come together.
Mr. Verma, you are saying that we need to penalize such action. We need a standard law that needs to come into place. Mr. Jindal, closing comment from you.
Not just law, all parties need to come up.
Yes, when there is a law, then it would be something that would apply to everyone across the board. Mr. Jindal, closing comments.
Presently, it was by a 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, we had fundamental duties brought in. But still, the fundamental duties cannot be enforced by the courts via mandamus. So what we would expect over here is a progressive legislation that would enable the courts to intervene if at all any form of derogatory language or any form of, I would say, attempt is made to create disharmony, polarization, or indignified statement is made. It is for the courts to intervene so that we can have a better sense of political maturity coming in, and we would see a better bonhomie and brotherhood within the society. So over here, it more depends upon the state as well as the courts to intervene and take cognizance.
So whether it's in the form of law or the courts taking cognizance and acting as a monitor in the class, we need either of these. It's not something that we can self-regulate. At this point in time, it doesn't seem so. At least that's something that we are agreeing upon. Lokesh Jindal, Karan Verma, many thanks for joining us on this discussion. It's an ongoing debate and we won't let it go. Thank you for joining us this evening.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.